Let's roast you for a minute.
Yeah. Get to the examining table. The man look me say no.
I'm not my cable. I never heard that term my entire life. Oba is not my cable. What you gonna do about it? Witness, he had been there a few minutes into
television, building the nation.
Mic check 1 2 1 2 3. Mic check.
A very good evening to you and welcome to right here on Global TV, Star Times channel 276. I'm Kemi Sheku, and of course I'm not doing this alone. Hi.
Hey, my name is Iyag Mofwegbe, by the way.
You wanted me to introduce you, but it's fine. On the Global Discuss tonight, we will be taking a look at the fuel subsidy removal and the minimum wage as it is today. What do Nigerians need to, or what should Nigerians expect from the government to cushion the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy? How's moving around been for you in recent times?
It's been tough. Tough in the sense that so if you like, press the reset button on my schedule. All right, so I am a bit more strategic now with movements, especially as it has to do with work. Or of course, you know, top to bottom what the work space is like for us. All right, so I'm a bit more deliberate how I leave the house, when I leave, and then when I get back. So I have to do all of those calculations in my head now, because there's a whole lot of change happening, all right, in our finances on account of this policy direction. However, while we're waiting to see how it pans out, we're trying to see how we run circles around the challenges associated with these announcements.
I think one of the things that many people need to focus on now is how to cut out unnecessary movement. Most importantly, have more internet meetings. It reminds me of the days of COVID-19,
right,
where you could still get work done without leaving the comfort of your homes. And I think that is one of the things that Nigerians should prioritize now. There's too much unnecessary movement around, and there is also the fact that Nigerians don't understand what it means to carpool. But let's look at the minimum wage. The president has said that the wages will be increased, and of course he has also enjoined the state governors to follow suit with regards to increasing the minimum wage. I don't know. In your own opinion, what do you think the minimum wage should be looking like?
Incidentally, that story was big on our bulletin earlier today on the news, and personally, I'm asking myself, was the president able to convince the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress as to how that they will find a way to create, if you like, an equilibrium? Equilibrium in the sense that, on the one hand, we're removing quite hard. On the other hand, we're giving you soft landing. We're trying to cushion the effects in such a way that you feel minimal impacts of this policy. That kind of thing. Because on the one hand, I'm wondering if the federal government under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu had been able to convince the Labour Congress, the Nigerian Labour Congress as we know it, would they still threaten strike come Wednesday? On the flip side, is it possible that the president had done what any responsible leader would do under the same circumstances, and then Labour still decides to say, come what may, we're still going on strike? Because in the end, Labour needs to realize that you don't want to distort this setting. I also think that Labour should cut the government some slack, given that he just got into power a matter of days ago, and also watch what happens to the policy in the days ahead. I understand that by instinct, Labour would always rail against policies such as this one, but it doesn't have to be.
Let me take you back to what you had said earlier. Was the president able to convince the Labour Congress? One of the things that I like to say sometimes is that you don't wake someone who's pretending to be asleep, because no matter how much you try to wake them up,
they are asleep.
They are pretending, so they are not going to wake up. Labour has seen how the fuel subsidy has crippled Nigeria. Labour cannot say they are oblivious of the fact that since Nigeria's fuel subsidy was removed, the cost of petrol in the countries that surround us
within the sub-region
has more than tripled, right? Labour cannot say they're oblivious to that. Labour cannot say they do not know that Nigeria has been subsidizing fuel for Niger, Cameroon, Togo, Benin. That the fuel Nigeria is subsidizing, right, is going to all these countries, and that's why it's almost difficult to say that how much Nigeria is consuming per day. And this is money we don't have. In the last 6 months, we have spent 3 trillion naira on fuel subsidy, subsidizing for other countries and not Nigeria alone. So Labour cannot say they are oblivious of that. Secondly, there is the part of the fact that Labour is in cahoots with the Labour Party and its candidates, right? Labour in itself was seen putting on the same uniform with the Labour Party candidate. So if the president has spoken to you and you're not looking at it that you are complicit, you have become partisan, so you're no longer representing the rights of the people, considering the fact that your candidate in itself did not win the elections.
So you're thinking, you are assuming that Labour, the Nigerian Labour Congress may be using that to even up with the government of the day?
Absolutely. This is the time for the Nigerian Labour Congress to backtrack a little bit and say, since we have been partisan, if we hold this hard stand against this government, it will seem, because that is what it looks like, because everything in life, you really must look at the optics. What does it look like? You've won uniform with the candidate. This person is now talking to you and you're taking a hard stand, despite what is obvious, that Nigeria can no longer sustain these things.
But Labour can whip up a counter argument and also take you back to 11 years ago, when the former government under the leadership of Dr. Goodluck Jonathan had also attempted quite practically to abolish, as it were, the fuel subsidy regime. And then how this same, members of this same government of today also came out and said there's no such, there was no such thing as subsidy, that it was only fraudulent, that the government of the day was only using it as a means, all right, to actually hold the country to ransom, hold the country by the jugulars, exploit the country, and crack up the economy and so on and so forth. But today we all know better. But I would ideally, even though in politics there's no such thing as ideal, expect that this government over time, we had a government in place 8 years prior to this one, would have come out to say we didn't understand the dynamics around the subsidy regime earlier. That was the reason we weren't able to actually, if you like, process what the entire regime was about. But then again, I think we can't change the past. However, going forward, I just need to land in a few seconds. However, going forward,
yes,
I think we have to deal with we have to respect President Bola Tinubu for his courage, for his vision, and for the fact that he's not only saying we are removing subsidy, we are using the money to do X, Y, Z, but he's also saying let's fight other issues around it. For example,
give me a moment. Let me backtrack to some of what you have said. What happened 11 years ago during President Goodluck Jonathan? You see, in politics, you do not have to be only right. You have to be politically right. You have to also
even when you sink the country, even when you lose the country at a disadvantage.
Give me a moment. So, in a situation where you're taking the subsidy out on the first day of the year, it means that you haven't spoken about it, right? It says a lot about your sensitivity to the people.
But this government did it a few minutes into taking power.
Well,
so what was the difference?
No, we're going somewhere. We're going somewhere.
Okay.
There is the part of it that you did it on the first day of the year. That ordinarily will ike people. There is the fact that you did not even inform the people or educate the people.
Prior to that announcement.
Prior to this, right? The past government has been saying it over and over again. Subsidy is crippling our nation.
And it took 8 years to have that conversation.
Give me a moment. Subsidy is crippling our nation. Nigeria cannot survive with this subsidy thing that we're doing. So this conversation has been ongoing over and over again till we got to this crux. And they said, okay, no problem. We will keep the subsidy until the end of the budget, which is the June to June budget. Now, you would recall that when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took his oath of office and was giving his inaugural speech, one of the things he said, as with all the other candidates who contested with him, one of the things he also reiterated was that subsidy must go. Typical Nigerian nature, the fuel queues arrived in the same filling stations that sold fuel just before that. Now, when you are trying to make a public decision like that, and you see that people are trying to take advantage of it, instantly you open it up. And that was one of the reasons why NNPC come in, whoever is in charge come in, we need to get this thing off. This is a good time. And you will see that for the first time since we started having these fuel queues, right? As soon as NNPC came in and said yes, we have taken out subsidy, these are the prices that you will buy fuel from henceforth. The queues disappeared. That tells you a lot about Nigerians, and they're always wanting to take advantage of situations. Besides that, you would also recall that in recent times, the NNPC MD, Mr. Mele Kyari, has been going round to educate the populace. One of the things that the removal of subsidy will do for us is that it becomes an open market. It does not have to, you don't have to bring in oil because you know somebody. Bring in the fuel, wherever you are from, whatever, and it will also give competitive advantage to the modular refineries. It will give competitive advantage to the people, the Dangote refinery that is just opening up. Do you understand? It will also give competitive advantage to those who are bringing in fuel as independent marketers, because nobody is looking for subsidy anymore. And what does that do? It also means that at the end of the day, water will find its level. Some people will decide that this is how much you can buy my fuel. This is how much I bought my fuel, buy it at this price. Some people will decide, no, I'm selling at a higher price. You know, all of that all of those dynamics will make a difference in how we take advantage of fuel.
I quite see the angle you're coming from, and yes, I will tell you, it's entirely valid. But however,
you'll have to hold,
yes,
you'll have to hold that. You'll have to hold that thought. You're watching Global Discourse on Global TV, Star Times Channel 276. We'll take a short break, and when we do come back, we will focus more on the president's talking about increasing minimum wage. How much is enough to take you home? After this break.
We talk about the Civil War, but we seem to ignore the fact that it was the manipulation of ethno-religious sentiment that eventually boiled over into that tragedy.
I think this is a negative part of what we're experiencing.
No shooting anymore.
We must come together as Nigerians.
We are brothers and sisters. Nigeria first before your politics.
We're all engaged in trying to keep the country united.
For a nation to develop, conflicts must be minimized.
Peace and stability is extremely important for
my hope and prayer is that the Nigerian of our dream will be achieved.
Global Television, building the nation.
Back, you're watching Global Discourse on Global TV, Star Times Channel 276, and we have been discussing the fuel subsidy, the minimum wage, and the attendant challenges that come with it. I'm Kemi Asheko once again, and of course, you know, I'm working with well, let's look at minimum wage. Many governors have struggled and are still struggling to pay the 30,000 minimum wage that had been declared by the federal government. And of course, in our federation, it is said not all fingers are equal. Some people are able to pay, some people are unable, you know, to pay. But with this increase in fuel price, almost tripling the amount of what we used to pay for fuel, there is that part where, whether we like it or not, before people start to beg, steal, or borrow, right? Minimum wage has to rise. And then the question to now ask will be, how much is enough to take you home? But before you start on that, let me just quickly give out the phone lines. Our phone lines are our phone line is 0806 685 7046. 0806 685 7046. How much will take you home? Because some people say my take home does not take me home.
Right, and that's a huge irony really in itself, right? So we had this brilliant, very articulate economist on the show in the course of the weekend. One of the things he said is, look, if you were earning 250,000 sometime by December 2021, by today, on account of inflation, you are earning 100,000. And then he pops a question. What then happens to 150,000? And then he said that's where inflation comes in. Of course, we can argue that figure back and forth, all of the technicalities around the economic issue. But the fact of the matter is, we have had states that have been very insolvent over the years. And these governors have not been able to, in the most logical way, explain to their citizens, their people, what exactly is happening to allocation. Or they just say, in blanket statement is, our revenues have dwindled. Please tell us, where were we with regards to IGRA when we were able to pay salaries as and when due? Where are we now that we're not able to pay for 4, 5, 6, 7 months, 1 year, for instance? And then at a point, in fairness to former President Buhari's government, they even had to come through for these states. At the point, again, that in itself is an expanded conversation.
Let me quickly take a look at this. You see, at the inception of our democracy in 1999, when we switched from the military rule to the democratic rule, one of the challenges that perhaps the orientation agency did not take into cognizance was how to explain to Nigerians that beyond casting your ballot, in a democracy you have the responsibility as a citizen to follow the money. That's one of the greatest challenges Nigeria is facing today.
Maybe Nigerians were too hungry to listen to that sort of orientation message at the time.
That may not even have been the case. The major challenge is the fact that Nigerians do not understand that you have to participate
in the process. Beyond casting your ballots.
One of the first things that President Muhammadu Buhari did, for example, was to open up the books. So every time they're paying, the local governments, the states, and even the federal government, they will put out a list. This amount of money has gone to this local government. This amount of money has gone to this state. This amount of money has gone to the federal government for this month. Now, if you ask the average person who lives in one local government, how much did your local government get for the month? They do not know. Now, that gives whoever is in charge leeway to do and undo whatever they choose. If we are going to fix Nigeria, if we are going to make Nigeria a nation worthy of its, of its name, the big brother of Africa, the Nigerians themselves must take ownership of this democracy. And in taking the ownership of the democracy, it lies with you being able to say, I am first of all going into partisan politics.
So do we all need to jump into the fray now?
Absolutely. That's, in my personal opinion, I believe that every Nigerian who is an adult should choose one of the 18 parties that represents their ideals as a person and be a part of that party. My people will say that when you are not there, you cannot contribute, right? So if we are all a part of political parties that fit our ideals.
How about those, Kevin, for a second, who are in the civic space and they're doing a lot of commendable work as well? Do they have to go partisan to be able to make impact?
Well, the truth about it is that even in the civic space, you have your biases.
Naturally.
The bias will continually be there. They are few if you're going to compare them to the Nigerian citizens who tell you that politics is dirty and they do not want to be a part of politics. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Right.
There are Nigerians who the civic space are they're a microcosm, right, of the average Nigerian who tells you politics is dirty, I don't want to have anything to do with it. People forget that being in politics does not mean you're campaigning for an election or does not mean you're going in for an election. It simply means when important decisions with regards to how our country runs, when important decisions with regards to how as a people we're going to move forward are being taken, you are somewhere in the fray, listening and adding your quota.
I'm just going to ask a question. Hopefully that will give you an opportunity to expand the narrative on this front, right?
Okay.
Do our political parties, as we know them today across board, all right, have the mechanism, all right, to allow for participatory democracy internally we're talking about? Now, for example, we keep hearing about money-backed politics, and every time there are divisions within political parties, in the final analysis, it always comes down to who gets what juicy appointments. It always comes down to who gets what amount of money. That's when you see politicians begin to wash dirty linens in public. So when young people with madness at the market square, they come to one conclusion: politics is dirty. But I agree with you totally that politics is not dirty. Politics, as a matter of fact, is an opportunity for you to love your country, for you to serve your country, for you to show practical patriotism. But we hope that political parties themselves get it right, because I don't know many politicians who are role models in very positive lights today. For young people, I mean, Nigeria, for example, has an average age of 18.1. So we are a bottom-heavy nation. So the politicians set the right example for young people to follow in terms of the political science.
Let me say something to you. The president has always said something. Politics is not served a la carte.
You have to take it, right?
Yes, it's not served a la carte. You cannot say because the people in it and do not have the right examples, you will not be a part of it, because whatever decisions they make would affect your life. I don't know if you understand me. So if you have such a situation, the first and the best thing for you to do is to, as they say on the streets, chook it. Go in first. And the problem with young people is many times they are in a hurry. Now we're looking at minimum wage. If the minimum wage discussion is going to be had, it will be had within the political parties, right? Perhaps the political party in power, maybe the NLC, maybe the TUC, right? But if you as a young person are within that space, what you have is, oh, please, this minimum wage, 30,000 take home will not take anybody home today. And as a young person, if you don't want us to steal, beg or borrow, then you need to look at it. I don't know if you're getting the trajectory I'm going on. There will never be good examples. You must be the good example within the political space. But if you stand aloof and say, oh, because there are no good examples, you know, you're going to stay away from politics, the decisions politicians make will eventually become the decisions that would affect all our lives.
I'm sure you have a call now, by the way. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. This is Gift calling from Lagos.
Oh, great, Gift. Nice to have you on the program tonight. So I'm sure you've been following the conversation, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
So what would you like to contribute?
Well, I want to say that the fuel subsidy is actually a good thing, because most of the presidential candidates during their manifesto and campaigns, they promised that they were going to remove it. But I think the approach which it was announced, because that created panic among Nigerians, people panic buying and all of that. So I feel it should have been announced in a better way, or it should have been done in stages.
Maybe announced in the middle of the night.
Not like in the middle of the night.
That was a joke, actually.
Not just go like said it like that. Because when it came out, when I went through the campaign speech, his inauguration speech, I don't think the person who's been there, I think it just came out. I think it was like a slip of tongue. I think it should have been done better, not just directly, because now the tripling, the hike in CC and all of that is affecting everyone. Even your head will tell you that removed from subsidy. So that I think it has been done in stages, because the effect now on Nigeria is something that is actually troubling.
All right, Gift. I think you made a very valid point, and I must tell you that I want to say thank you for contributing to the show.
Thank you, Gift. Have a good night. Well, it's about 3 minutes to the end of the show, and this is a good time to drop it. For you, with regards to the minimum wage, how much take home do you think will ordinarily take people home now? as minimum wage?
Kemi, I'll tell you something. It's a bit more tricky than we readily realize, all right? So the first thing we're looking at is, have we been able to fix other issues? Because don't forget, people's earnings don't only end up in transportation. People have to fend for themselves, eat, for example. People have to take care of their health. So money is going to several places. That's why it's becoming increasingly important how we spend the money that we're going to realize from the removal of fuel subsidy going forward, before we start talking about what exactly is the amount that will be appropriate to take people home.
Well, and that's a good place to drop it tonight. We need to fix all the other things that we get to use money for besides transportation. And when we do that, then we can decide what take-home will take us home. But in the meantime, Nigerians, we have to build our nation. We have to hold the faith. We have to believe, and give the new government an opportunity to show us their best foot. And to do that, a little bit of patience is required. But don't forget, as a country, we do not want to subsidize for other countries to benefit from. We need these monies for Nigeria itself. And it may come with a little pain, but there will be ease at the end of the day. My name is Kemi Ashekun. Thank you for being a part of the Global Discuss.
It's been a pleasure being here with you, Kemi, and I hope you'll have enjoyed the rest of the weekend.
You didn't sign out.